Hello and welcome back to No Limit Drag Racing 2.0, and today we're going to dive into 10 things that No Limit Drag Racing 2.0 needs in the future. Now, this is a compiled list of some things that I would love to see, some things I have seen the community talking about that they would like to see, and a couple of other things that I've picked up here and there. And as always, if there's anything else that you would like to see in a future No Limit Drag Racing 2.0 update, let me know in the comments down below. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the list. Now, the first thing on this list is something that I've seen in the community a lot, and it's also something that I would like to see more of myself. And if these are not your preferred type of cars, completely understand that. It's all a preference thing. But the first thing on the list is I would love to see more import cars. I think seeing more import cars in this game would be absolutely incredible. And I know we have some already, and the cool thing about the ones that we have already is that a lot of them do get used a good bit. Now, obviously, there is definitely a large list of American cars in this game, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's a game about drag racing, which is, you know, there's deep roots about drag racing in American culture. I completely get that. However, import cars are deeply rooted in drag racing as well, and I think it would be really nice to have even more of them in the game. And actually, with that, if you would like to see more import cars in the game, let me know in the comments below which ones you would like to see personally. Now, the next item on our list kind of piggybacks off of the previous one, but not entirely, and that is front-wheel drive drag cars. Now, front-wheel drive drag cars are a class and community and really discipline all their own. They require totally different types of development. Well, some of the things are carried over, obviously, like some of the obvious things, but they require totally different types of car setups, totally different types of, geometry within the way you would set up the suspension. There's a lot of differences in the way you would set up a front-wheel drive drag car, and that dynamic has not been explored at all in the game. And yes, I am well aware that there are probably going to be some people that are going to be like, we don't need any front-wheel drive drag cars in the game. And to be honest, if you're not interested in front-wheel drive drag cars, I get it. Some people are, some people aren't. But the reason I bring them up is because there is a dedicated community and a dedicated following around them. Moving on now to our next point, and this is a little bit of a carryover from one of my recent Off-Road Outlaws videos, but I think it applies here as well, and that is more engine, turbo, and supercharger sounds to choose from. Now, I believe, and I've always been a firm believer in the fact that sounds and audio are one of the most immersive aspects of any game. You could have the world's best graphics. You could literally have the best looking game of all time. And if it doesn't have the sound to back it up, especially in a game focused around cars, trucks, any kind of vehicle, then that is absolutely going to detract from the experience. Now, I'm not saying that the sounds in No Limit are bad. I actually think they're really, really good, especially for a mobile game. However, like I said in my recent Off-Road Outlaws video, I do think that a little bit more variety in the way the engines and turbos and superchargers all sound would be really, really nice to have, and the ability to pick from multiple different sound samples would be absolutely incredible. Now, this next thing kind of gets a little bit more out there. When I say out there, it's sort of a little bit further outside the general framework that the game functions in right now. However, remember, these are just ideas for the future and not things that are confirmed. And with that being said, though, half-mile / full-mile runway racing would be an insane addition to this game. Now, I know that it is outside of the scope of traditional drag racing. You know, when you think of traditional drag racing, you think eighth mile, quarter mile, things like that. You don't necessarily think of half-mile and full-mile runway racing in the same vein as traditional drag racing. It's a very different type of discipline. It really is. But on the flip side of that, when you think about how deep the tuning, and in particular the gearbox tuning, is in this game, I think that they have the tuning in place to support Definitely half mile. I don't know about full mile, but definitely half mile I think would be doable, because if you think about it, you could stretch the gears out in these cars so much more than you do right now. And I know that there's obviously a lot more to building a half mile car than taking a traditional drag car and then stretching the gears out. I get it. There's a lot more to it than that. But I do think that the enjoyment of it would definitely be there, and it would be a really cool angle to explore. Now, this next point on the list comes directly from stuff that I see out there in the community, because every time that I post, anything about like things that people would like to see in No Limit, or really anybody else posts anything about things that people would like to see in No Limit, there is usually always a good amount of comments for people wanting diesel drag trucks now, or just diesel engines in their drag cars as a option. Now, what makes diesels tricky is I feel like they would have to be run in their own entirely separate class, because if you wanted to realistically simulate the idea of diesels in drag racing, they would have to run completely separately from the gas vehicles. Now, I'm not saying they wouldn't be as fast, but I feel like you might run into some, game framework issues, unless you did a lot of work on the game balance, because you have two totally different types of, if you think about it, totally different types of propulsion and totally different types of ways that the vehicle is going to react and actually get down the drag strip with a diesel engine versus a gas engine, and the way that you have to tune it, the way the tire grip is going to react. All these things have to be taken into close consideration. However, if they did bring some diesel trucks into No Limit Drag Racing 2.0, I think that probably one of the coolest ones to see would be a lowered, fully built Cat Eye Chevy Duramax. I think that if you did that, if you put that thing in the game, I think it would probably instantly become one of the most used vehicles. Now, obviously, there's going to be some people that won't use it because it's a truck and they just prefer the cars, but I have a feeling that a very large, very, very large part of the community would be all over that truck. The next thing on the list is a direct carryover from my Off-Road Outlaws list that I did recently, and this one needs no explanation at all: a vote to kick option in the free roam lobbies. Now, obviously, I've done a lot more Off-Road Outlaws open lobbies than I have No Limit Drag Racing 2 open lobbies. However, the same issues that I talked about in the Off-Road Outlaws video, like, for example, people that just randomly join lobbies to troll, also becomes an issue in the lobbies, or at least the free roam lobbies in No Limit Drag Racing 2.0, so a vote to kick option would be really nice. Now, this next point kind of goes back a little bit to when I talked about the whole half mile and full mile thing, because I think it opens up the dynamic to more cars, and specifically potential for supercars. Now, when I say supercars, I mean stuff like twin-turbo Lambos, twin-turbo R8s, turbocharged Ford GTs, things like that. Things that have kind of cemented themselves as the tuner cars of the supercar world. I'm not saying you're going to be out here drag racing a stock Lamborghini Aventador. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about supercars that get sent off to custom shops to get torn apart, fully built, get their engines built, their transmissions built, get big turbos strapped onto them, and make like 2,000 horsepower. Those are the supercars I am talking about. And if they did add stuff like that, it would be an amazing time to also think about adding stuff like roll racing, the same way that they would do at, like, let's say a Texas 2K event or a Streetcar Takeover event, where they use a traditional drag strip, but you start back behind, usually like way back behind the start line. You roll at up to about 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, kind of choose whatever speed, and then at the start line, that's where you put the hammer down. And roll racing can get really, really interesting, and especially a lot of those big power street cars and big power modified supercars really work well for competing in organized roll racing. Now, this next one is a little bit more kind of, I would say, almost out of left field. I don't know if it would ever happen in this game, and it might require a totally different game framework entirely, so take this with a grain of salt. But how crazy would it be to have a bike class in No Limit? That would be absolutely insane. Now, I understand that that would require basically well, I don't know if it would require a totally different framework for the game itself, but I do understand that it would probably be extremely difficult for the devs to put into this current framework. I'm not here to underestimate that at all. I'm sure it would be insanely difficult. But you know what? That would be one of those things that would push this game to such an insane extreme. I think it'd be wild. And now that we're at the 10th item on the list, and if you watched one of my recent Offered Outlaws videos, you'll know what the 10th item is going to be. The 10th item is the community item. Let me know in the comments down below what you think No Limit Drag Racing 2.0 needs in the next update or in future updates later on down the line. But that is going to do it for this video, y'all, and if you enjoyed, feel free to let me know any thoughts and opinions you may have in the comments down below. Hit that like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I will see y'all next time.